Around 4 months ago, I made a video about Splitgate 2 and its peculiar history, including the game publicly unlaunching itself and going back into beta after its initial release in June 2025. At the time, developer 1047 Games announced plans to reevaluate things and come back soon, but it wasn't clear yet what exactly that would look like. In December, we finally got our answer with the launch of Splitgate Arena Reloaded, and so now the cycle begins again. Will this third attempt be the one to break through and find consistent success for the IP? Or will this new iteration of Splitgate suffer the same untimely fate of its predecessors? Splitgate 2 missed the mark for a myriad of reasons, but the primary issues all centered around straying too far from what fans of the original enjoyed. Modernized gameplay elements like hero abilities or the Battle Royale mode were a big miss. It was obvious 1047 was trying to make a game that incorporated all of the same features you could find across other popular multiplayer games. But as is often the case when trying to make a game that caters to everyone, you end up catering to no one. Fans of hero shooters like Overwatch don't want to play a non-objective based arena shooter. Call of Duty or Halo players don't like hero abilities, and Splitgate faithfuls don't want any of this. So you leave yourself with a final product that basically no one was truly satisfied with. When it comes to Arena Reloaded, it's clear 1047 got the message, as they totally overhauled the experience. Most notably, factions and abilities would be removed, alongside the addition of a classic arena mode. Other important improvements would come from better rank systems and progression, enhanced performance, and a visual overhaul. Of course, there would also be tons of added content with new maps, weapons, and game modes. They were saying all the right things, but as any Splitgate fan would tell you, 1047 tends to always say the right things. Whether those promises would actually come together is another story. Splitgate was relaunched for the third time in just 5 years on December 17th, 2025, now under the Splitgate Arena Reloaded name. And the initial response from fans has been widely positive. With all of the unnecessary changes from Splitgate 2 gone, the core community feels like they finally have their beloved game back again. I jumped in for some games and definitely had a whole lot more fun than I did with Splitgate 2. It really does feel significantly better. So from a quality standpoint, it seems Arena Reloaded may have been the happy ending 1047 was hoping for. But as of right now, there is unfortunately just one little problem. No one is playing it. On Arena Reloaded's launch day, it saw peaks of just 2,297 concurrent players on Steam. Now, as I always like to point out on this channel, Steam player counts are not everything. Arena Reloaded is also available on consoles, and 1047 reported that over 150,000 total players had logged in within the first 5 days. They also claim retention is the highest it's ever been, with people playing longer than before. So while Steam player count may not tell the full story, it also can't be totally ignored. Barely 2 weeks since launch, Arena Reloaded is now struggling to hit even 1,000 concurrent players on a given day. Even if you were extremely generous and assumed there were like 10 times that many people on console, that would still not be enough to keep a game afloat. And to be clear, there is almost certainly not 10 times that many people on console. So this raises the question, what happened here? Arena Reloaded is quite literally everything the Splitgate community had asked for. It is an extremely refined and improved version of the original game that took the internet by storm back in 2021. And yet, 1047 finds themselves in another precarious situation. The truth is, the low player counts are not especially surprising. Splitgate Arena Reloaded has received essentially no marketing whatsoever. I mean, seriously, how many of you even knew about the relaunch before this video? It is a world of difference from Splitgate 2's notorious appearance at Summer Games Fest and the reported $400,000 spent getting Twitch streamers to play it. My assumption is there are one of two reasons for this. Either they blew the whole marketing budget on Splitgate 2 and then made no money back, or maybe they learned a valuable lesson. I mentioned in my Splitgate 2 video that their heavy marketing exposed the game when it was not ready for the spotlight. All the players who gave it a shot after seeing it at Jeff Keighley's event or watching their favorite streamer play it were met with a rough and frankly unfinished package. The damage that was done to the Splitgate brand was devastating. So rather than risk making that same mistake again, 1047 is taking a much more cautious approach with Arena Reloaded. According to CEO Ian Prue, they plan to monitor the response and make necessary changes before ramping up out marketing in early 2026. It's an interesting strategy, and one they actually aren't all too unfamiliar with. An often forgotten fact is that the original Splitgate was released in early access over 2 full years before it blew up during the summer of 2021. So this idea that Arena Reloaded could follow a similar trajectory is not totally out of the question, but they are facing a serious uphill battle here. And unfortunately for 1047, the main hurdle has nothing to do with Arena Reloaded itself. Rather, it will be the mistakes of the past haunting them more than anything. Let me take you back to September 2nd, 2022. It was on this day that 1047 announced Splitgate 1 would receive no further updates, as they instead turned their attention to creating an entirely new game. It was a definite shock and upsetting for fans, but at the same time, the decision made sense. After 2.5 years of waiting, Splitgate 2 was finally released. But as we covered earlier, that game made a lot of mistakes and went down the wrong path, leading to the unlaunch back into beta. 6 more months of waiting lands us Arena Reloaded, centered around a main selling point that it's back to everything you loved about Splitgate 1. And hey, that's great and all, but think for a moment about what I just said. Fans waited 1,200 days for a game that is being marketed to them as going back to the roots of the original game 1047 ditched in the first place. I can't even comprehend how frustrating that must be for someone who loved Splitgate back in 2021 and 2022. I don't doubt there were a lot of hardcore Splitgate players turned off by this whole experience. And even for those who were willing to wait, the gaming industry moves incredibly fast. A whole lot happened over the last 3 years. Each passing month saw more and more great games being released, with every day presenting another opportunity for a Splitgate fan to find something different they wanted to play instead. So by the time Arena Reloaded has finally come along, they simply didn't care about this game anymore. Worse than that are the people who do care but refuse to go back after the embarrassments that came before it. That's likely why Arena Reloaded's numbers are so minuscule in comparison to prior entries. Yes, it is absolutely true that the game has not been marketed nearly as much, so lower player counts are to be expected, and I do agree with 1047 that ensuring your core community is happy before blowing more millions on marketing was definitely the right decision. But if I was at the dev team or someone simply hoping to see this game thrive, I would have liked to see that core community show up in a bigger way. Because at the end of the day, you are only going to get as far as that group can take you. We saw how Splitgate 2 crashed and burned when it tried to be a highly marketable, appeal to the modern audience kind of game. That failure meant Splitgate had no choice but to lean back into its niche identity, which is totally fine if you have a player base big enough to support it. But if these current numbers are to be believed, I'm not sure 1047 has that anymore. Too many bridges have been burned, too many promises have been broken, and too many of their fans are afraid of getting hurt again. I suppose that's the price you pay when you've launched a game 3 different times. As of right now, 1047 has remained positive going into 2026, at least publicly. They have said they are happy with player feedback and where the game is at as they prepare for their 2026 marketing push. I am no fortune teller, so I can't say for sure what will happen going forward, but if I were to make a prediction, I would say the absolute best case scenario for Splitgate at this point is just attracting a sizable enough audience to keep the game up and running. Any grand visions where they join the ranks of the top multiplayer games in the world may need to be left behind. Because no matter how many times you rebrand or relaunch this game, it is still the same thing at its core. It's a game built around a very intimidating portal mechanic. As we saw from all 3 Splitgate iterations, that concept may just be too complex to reach the wider gaming audience. And no, their portal-free game mode is not the answer. Because while it's great to have that as a secondary option, Splitgate without portals is now just an archaic arena shooter with no discernible identity of its own, and that presents a whole multitude of other marketing challenges. There is nothing you can realistically do to change these 2 key components, and you shouldn't change them. These things are what makes Splitgate Splitgate. It's why fans of the game love it, but it may need to be accepted that it's also what makes Splitgate incredibly hard to scale up to the levels investors originally envisioned. So with all of that in mind, I would like to ask 1047 for one simple thing going forward. Arena Reloaded has to be the last try. No more betas, no more going back to the drawing board, and for the love of God, no more relaunches. You have made a good game here. Focus now on supporting it as long as you can and hope more players come later. Maybe in an unlikely twist of fate, Splitgate does see another resurgence and is able to join the live service titans. Or maybe it's simply dead destined to be enjoyed by its core community of a couple thousand players and nothing more. Either way, whatever happens from here, it's time for 1047 to stop running and live with the results.